Good afternoon and welcome to the first webinar of the Rocky Mountain MS Center's Empower Educational Series. Today's topic is Sticking With It, Real-Life Strategies to Help You Form and Keep Healthier Habits. This presentation features Kelsey Lantz. Kelsey has been the Education Manager at the Rocky Mountain MS Center for nearly 4 years. If you missed something on a slide, we will be archiving this webinar on our website, www.mscenter.org, so you can replay it at any time. We'll reserve several minutes at the end to answer questions from the audience. You can submit questions at any time during the hour by typing them into the chat window on your screen. We will answer as many questions as time allows. Today's presentation is for informational purposes only, and it is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And with that, we'll turn it over to Kelsey.
Thank you, Pete. I'm excited to be able to talk today about a favorite topic of mine. I love setting New Year's resolutions, goals, and just generally getting inspired to form healthier habits. But after a dramatic beginning, I've often felt that inspiration putter out, and then I feel frustrated with myself when I haven't made the grand change that I've set out to. I know what I should be doing, but I just can't seem to make myself do it. Over time, I've come to realize that I should have been focusing more on forming habits that would support these goals over time. So what's the difference between a goal and a habit? It's more than just semantics. Goals are what you want to accomplish. Habits are how you will get it done. Goals usually have an endpoint, and they require you to commit to a decision over and over until that endpoint is met. Habits are generally indefinite actions and practices, and once they're to the level of becoming a habit, you really don't have to think about doing them anymore. They become subconscious. They allow you to decide and then to not decide. There's a time and a place for both goals and habits. They each serve their own purposes. It's important for you to think about which one will be the most helpful in any situation. Do you want to run a half marathon, or is your ultimate goal to become a person who exercises regularly? Success and the path to get there will look differently depending on which one you choose. I used to be very goal-oriented because goals were just highly motivating to me. But I didn't take the time to make sure that the goal was my ultimate end point. In my early 20s, I decided I wanted to become more physically active. I joined an amazing group of ladies at a morning boot camp class, and I loved it. One day, the instructor announced that she was going to run a marathon. Fueled on early morning endorphins and post-class coffee, I decided that I also wanted to run a marathon to encourage this more active lifestyle. I trained hard, and I accomplished the goal. But then I basically stopped running, and it took me a really long time to get back into a regular physical fitness routine. I should have focused more on making it a habit to exercise. So why are habits so powerful? How do they help us? With habits, the decision of whether or not to do something is made ahead of time, when you're clear-headed and making decisions on purpose. Habits reduce decision fatigue. You don't have to try to make the decision when you're out of decision reserve, and then you can save your decision-making energy for other things. Over time, habits become automatic. Even small habits done over and over bring you benefits that add up over time. Since there's not a specific endpoint, the benefits continue as long as you keep the habit going. Specifically, why should people with MS want to form healthier habits? At the Rocky Mountain MS Center, we focus on maximizing lifelong brain health. Everyone has a different amount of neurological reserve that can get used up over time. Neurological reserve is the ability of the brain to compensate for injury by developing new neuronal pathways. If you have MS, this is the way your brain recovers from relapses and compensates for lesions. The damage to the lesions is still there, but your brain has found another pathway for the nerve signals to take. However, this reserve isn't an infinite supply. It gets used up as it compensates for the MS damage. There are many things in life that can use up neurological reserve beyond MS. Head injuries, heart disease, stress, lack of sleep, and natural aging all also take a toll on your brain. With MS, you can limit the amount of damage that MS is able to wreak on your brain by using a disease-modifying treatment designed to reduce the inflammation causing the damage, as discussed with your doctor, and you can reduce the stress put on your brain by eliminating other health issues called comorbid conditions. Many healthy lifestyle choices also have the added benefit of helping you to build more neurological reserve. It's like getting double credit for good behavior. I'm not going to give you a list of healthy habits to adopt or rank the most common in any order of importance in this webinar. We started this webinar with a suggestion that you already know what you should do. But I want to point out a couple of things for people with MS to consider. There are so many reasons why exercise is an important part of staying well. Beyond the effects on your physical body health, exercise is also amazing for the brain. It increases blood flow, which brings your brain more glucose and oxygen. It releases a brain-derived growth hormone, and it's got anti-inflammatory components that help protect and reduce the degenerative process that naturally happens in all brains. You can read more about exercise and your brain in the spring 2019 issue of Informs. Healthy eating keeps a lot of comorbidities at bay, including obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and the list goes on and on. There is no one diet that has proven to have a direct effect on the disease course of MS, but we know that what is good for the heart is good for the brain. So healthier eating in general will make you feel better and will limit trouble from comorbidities. We have several resources on our website, mscenter.org, in both article and video format for nutrition and MS. Good sleep habits are essential for consolidation of learning and memory, proper immune functioning, and general physiological housekeeping and maintenance. Really, as I've started to go through some of the possible healthy habits that you might want to consider, it strikes me that they're all connected and interrelated. Improving one area of your life will likely have an effect of improvement on another. It's the same with MS. Your main problem might be fatigue, and it would make sense that you should improve your sleep. But if you eat more foods that fuel your body, you will also have more energy, and then you can exercise more, which in turn could help you sleep. So even making progress on one healthy habit could have far-reaching consequences. I'm not encouraging you to change all of these things at once, but knowing what habit formation strategies work for you and which stumbling blocks you're prone to will help you improve the areas that you want to over time. It takes time to develop a habit, and that can be frustrating, but the good news is the time will pass anyway. You might as well be moving forward with the habits you want, however slowly. In Start With Why, Simon Sinek describes that motivation can come in many shapes and forms: manipulation, fear, peer pressure, aspirations, and novelty, just to name a few. But to be inspired to action time and again, you must use the power of why. Knowing your why also gives you a little flexibility in finding just the right how for you. To understand at a very deep and personal level why you want to develop a habit, you could ask yourself these 5 why questions. Because your doctor said you should is not usually a strong enough reason to sustain a habit over the long term. I encourage you to take a few minutes to think about what this behavior change will mean to you personally. As an example that I'll use throughout this webinar is my personal goal of walking 10,000 steps per day. I received a Fitbit as a gift several years ago, and though I considered myself to be a moderately active person, I was shocked to learn that most days I didn't walk more than 3,000 to 5,000 steps. Now, keep in mind as I give this example that this is my own personal goal and that each person will need to have a goal that makes sense to them. If you have mobility issues, 10,000 steps per day may not be a reasonable goal for you, and that's perfectly okay. When I started, 10,000 steps seemed and was miles away. And because Fitbit says I should walk 10,000 steps wasn't enough to get me to triple my daily steps. I wanted to start walking 10,000 steps to be more physically active. That's the first step in the why questions. Why is that important to you? It was important to me because I know that being physically active cuts down on a lot of health problems and improves brain health. Why does that matter to you? Brain health matters to me because it's what will slow the natural aging process. Why or how does that affect you? By slowing the effects of aging, I can protect my neurological reserve and stay mentally sharp as I age. And then why or how will that change you? By slowing this will protect me from neurologic conditions and keep me independent in my senior years. Can you see how I drilled down to a more specific and personal reason for wanting to increase my physical activity? Working at the Rocky Mountain MS Center, I have learned a lot about the importance of brain health, and it's a pretty big motivator for me. Also, I have now realized that my ultimate goal is to be more physically active more often. While I may use 10,000 steps as a measurement and a daily goal, I have the flexibility to include other forms of movement and activity in my regular habit. I suggest that you write out your final, deeply meaningful, and personal reason for why you want to make the change, and post it somewhere that you will see it often. Write it on your bathroom mirror, put it on a Post-it note on your desk or in your car, or in a planner. Coming back to your why will help you on the days that you just don't want to do it. Let's get into some more concrete strategies for forming new habits. The most important thing here is to know yourself. Everyone is going to react differently to these tips. There's no one way that works for everyone. I encourage you to try out any of these that interest you, keep what works, and ditch what doesn't. Consider this your habit toolkit. Gretchen Rubin wrote a book called Better Than Before. One of the tips that she gives is to be consistent. She says that what you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. In the beginning, it's easy to get carried away and think of the big end result that you want to see. Personally, I want to be the type of person who goes to the gym every day and works out as much as I can. But if I go to the gym on day one and I work out as hard as I can and push myself to the limit, I'm going to be sore the next day and maybe the day after that, and I might only go to the gym once or maybe twice that week. That's not how you get a habit started or cemented. Sometimes in the beginning, the habit of a habit is more important than the habit itself. So that brings me to my next point, starting small. Some people do really well with, the grand beginning, but that's probably not why you're watching this webinar. If you're only getting 3,000 steps a day, it's unlikely that you can start walking 10,000 steps tomorrow and then keep that habit up every day. It's easier to start with something that's so easy you can do it today, and you almost can't not do it. Decide to park further away from the door once today. Do that for several days before you add anything else. Maybe then you try to park in the farthest spot every time you go to work or every time you go to school. And then after a few days, maybe add in one walk around your office building after lunch. When I started to increase my steps, I did it by adding 500 to 1,000 steps to each day, and then I would keep that goal for a few weeks before increasing it again. I would commit to drinking a full bottle of water in the morning, so I'd have to get up to refill it, just to get a couple more steps. If you start to notice a lot of resistance, back down and get comfortable again. One strategy that I've seen, and is suggested by Martha Beck in her book 4-Day Win, is just driving to the gym every day for a few days. Then increase it to maybe showing up in your gym clothes or changing at the gym. But don't worry if you don't actually work out yet. You're training your brain to show up at the gym regularly. You're becoming a person who likes to go to the gym. I know this sounds completely silly. Just driving to the gym won't actually burn any calories or give you any direct benefits. But you're in this for the long haul. You want to create a lasting habit. I often have to talk myself out of feeling silly when I take these teeny tiny steps towards a new habit. I have to remind myself that any step in the right direction, however small, is better than taking a giant leap and then falling down. Another benefit to making your first steps so small so that there's no way that you won't do them is that you're building your confidence. Every time you make a commitment to yourself and you keep it, you're writing a script in your brain that confirms that you can do what you say. In her book, The 4-Day Win, Martha Beck notes that adult development experts know that an early win helps enormously for anyone trying to achieve a difficult task by enhancing the sense of self-efficacy that's essential to keep us striving towards distant goals. After 4 days, you'll probably find that it takes less discipline to repeat the action. If you find yourself having trouble sticking to something for 4 days, back it down and make it even easier. Another gem from Gretchen Rubin: you manage what you monitor. If you're trying to make a new habit, it's a good idea to have a baseline of where you are now, which was easy for me with the steps. I had a fitness tracker. If you're working on healthier eating, starting a food journal might be helpful. For many habits that we want to start tracking, a simple calendar is enough to track how often we do something. For instance, if you want to start meditating, you might put a sticker on a calendar each day that you practice. For some people, once they start to do something regularly, they don't want to break the chain. If this is you, you can use it to your advantage by making this chain very visual. Hang a calendar up in a place you see it regularly, chart your progress on a poster board or in a planner. Planning ahead is essential for forming a new habit. This is something out of the ordinary that you're trying to make stick, so you'll probably want to think about when the best time to do it. Once the habit becomes more natural, then the goal is that you won't have to think so much about it. For me, it worked really well to schedule in a walk around my block every morning before I leave for work. This starts my day with almost 1,000 steps and has great mindfulness benefits as well. I did have to start getting up about 10 minutes earlier, but as long as I could make that work, this time of day wasn't likely to get invaded by other obligations. If your chosen time isn't working, try another time or method before abandoning the habit. I had thought to add in a walk around my office building every day at 10:30, but between meetings and bouts of productivity, this was often interrupted. Now I use a short walk as a good break in between projects instead. It's a good idea to think about how you personally respond to accountability and work that into your habit plan. Some people do much better with outer accountability. That is, they can do things that other people need from them all day, but have trouble keeping commitments to themselves. This is definitely me, but I also don't do well with the idea of a traditional accountability buddy. I don't want someone checking in on my personal habits. So it has really helped me to think of what my future self would want me to do in a situation. For my goal of better brain health, I'm completely accountable to future me. This is particularly useful because I likely won't see the immediate results of taking better care of my brain, and I won't really be able to measure long-term how much better off I am. But I know future me will appreciate all the efforts I'm putting in now. I trust the science that has researched these long-term benefits. Take some time to think about what has worked for you in the past. Maybe you have a trusted friend or family member that can check in with you and encourage you along the way. Sometimes it helps if they have a similar goal, and then you guys can check in on each other. If you don't know what works best, experiment and keep track of the results. Another example of how knowing yourself is key. I knew that last night I would be pretty stressed about making sure this webinar was ready to go, and that stress is usually an easy loophole to skip going to the gym for myself. So when a friend offered to meet me at a fitness class, I took her up on it. I don't want someone checking in on me all the time, but every once in a while I know that it's good for me. Make it easy. Along with thinking about when you're going to do something, think about ways to make it easier. If you want to walk more, wear comfortable shoes that day. If you want to eat healthier, surround yourself with easy, healthy snacks instead of junk food. It is amazing how motivated by convenience people are. Use this to your advantage when setting up new routines and habits. The opposite of making healthy habits convenient is to make unhealthy habits inconvenient. I moved the candy bowl at work to be about 20 steps further from my desk and not in my direct line of sight. It's cut down considerably on my chocolate consumption. Pairing and stacking are popular strategies to use what you already do to help with something new. I have a Kindle, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to read while running on the treadmill, so I have books that I only read while working out. I heard a lot of other people who watch a favorite show or listen to a favorite podcast only while working out. The key here is to only do one when you're doing the other. As soon as I allow myself to read those books at home, that particular pairing strategy is ruined until I can get back to being strict about it. Stacking is somewhat similar. It's when you take a habit that you already have and then you link a new habit to it. For instance, if you brush your teeth every evening, flossing, you could add flossing to brushing your teeth. Begin now. Good intentions are not good enough. If you're starting with an action that is as small as we discussed earlier, why not start now? Tomorrow is not a day of the week. I sometimes get hung up on what I think is the silliest reason not to start something. I think, I really should have started that yesterday. And then I feel bad that I've already wasted valuable time and I've missed the best time to start, so maybe it won't make any difference if I put it off a little bit longer. Or if an action is so small, I think it will just take me too long to reach my ultimate goal. Why even bother today? I'll work on it tomorrow. But that's not how habits get started. Mark Twain once said, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. For me, eating the frog means just do it. Otherwise, you'll end up thinking about it and procrastinating the whole day. So oftentimes, if I'm putting off a habit, I'll say to myself, just eat the frog. Get it done. Sometimes when I'm really resisting doing something, I'll sit down and I'll tell myself that I literally cannot do anything else until I do that thing. Take my walk or fix a healthy snack. I won't let myself do any other projects, tasks, no looking at my phone, no email, nothing. I feel silly pretty fast and get the task done. When starting a new habit, it's because I've decided that this habit is important to me, and I've put the time into planning when I'm going to do it and when the best timing is. So I've made the decision beforehand. If it's that important to me, it should go before anything else. I don't use this strategy all the time, but it helps on particularly hard days. I feel like rewards are one of the most contested and debated parts of habit formation. How often to reward, what kind of a reward is appropriate, those are going to be different things for every person, every goal, every habit. I think the key here is just to be honest with yourself about what really works for you and not just what you want to work or what you wish would work or what you think should work. Something that seems like it should be intuitive but isn't always for me is to make sure that if you're going to use a reward, it's something you actually really want. In an effort to be more productive in a day, I sometimes try to use another obligation as a reward, and that doesn't work. I'll say, if I work out today, I can work on this project I've been putting off. But truth be told, I was putting off both working out and the project, so making myself do one is not going to motivate me to do the other. Be careful not to make a reward something that defeats the purpose of the habit or gets in the way of you keeping it up. And just like with pairing, you have to be disciplined enough to not skip the habit and give yourself the reward anyway. Your brain knows when you're willing to do this. If possible, a great strategy would be to find some reward within the habit itself. For my 10,000 steps goal, I've found true enjoyment in my morning walk and pleasure in seeing my watch hit 10,000 steps. I don't use any other rewards when I get to 10,000 steps. I celebrate with good thoughts and feelings every time that I see that I hit it. I use monitoring to celebrate my progress. I think it's important to recognize your progress with a habit, so do whatever you need to do to see that. I keep a bullet journal, and I have several different visual reminders about my various Move More habits and their progress. So when setting up new habits, what could possibly go wrong? For me, one of the most difficult things about starting a habit is remembering that I wanted to do it in the first place. I already use a daily to-do list, so when starting something new, I add it every day to my to-do list. I will often also make a visual reminder on a whiteboard or the fridge or at my desk to remind myself during the day. There are often unavoidable interruptions to a new routine or habit. For me, my walk around the block was severely interrupted by winter in Colorado. I don't enjoy the walk when it's below 35 degrees or so. I could have easily gotten out of the habit during our first cold week. But I knew that cold weather was going to be a deterrent. As soon as it started to get cold, I gave myself a pass to skip the walk that day, but I did not consider it a failure of my habit. I was just giving myself a temporary weather pass, and I reminded myself that I would pick it back up. Linking my pass to the actual temperature was good, because on the days that it was warm enough, I would still walk, so I wasn't giving it up for the whole winter. I also added in a few more steps around my house on mornings that I didn't walk outside, and I made it a point to walk around the office more often as well. I even had a few days where I went to the gym and walked on a treadmill to get in a few more steps. Give yourself grace when you stumble. Gretchen also gave me one of my favorite proverbs. A stumble may prevent a fall. You're likely to have some sort of a break in your habit that's out of your control, or you'll just have a day where you really don't want to do it, or you'll forget about it. The important thing then is to make sure you recognize the stumble and prevent the fall. You could even think ahead at what might cause a stumble and prepare for it. When you give yourself grace, you allow the stumble to stay small, and you allow yourself to get back on track. Watch out for small stumbles that might be easily missed. It's easy to think, if I've gone above and beyond 10,000 steps one day, then I can take it easy the next day. But that can quickly spiral into taking several days easy, and then I would have to start the habit all over again. My walking habit doesn't suffer on vacation, but a lot of other healthy habits do. For special circumstances like that, you might consider making an exception ahead of time so that it doesn't interrupt your good habits. For instance, I'm going on vacation to Las Vegas soon, and I know that they have some positively decadent desserts. Even though I've made it a habit not to order dessert at restaurants, I'm going to make an exception that I can order a specialty dessert only in Vegas. This ties the exception to a time and a place and gives me an easy way to get back into the habit when I return. If I had not thought about this planned exception in advance, and instead had planned on keeping up with the habit of not eating dessert out, I would probably be very tempted in Vegas, and I would look for a loophole to allow me to order dessert. If I followed this logic, then I would probably feel bad about the dessert because I'd made a split-second decision to order it. I wouldn't enjoy the experience, and I wouldn't have a plan for how to get back into the habit. There are a lot of loopholes to look for. Gretchen Rubin does a great job of explaining them in her book, Better Than Before. When a habit isn't working, take the time to seriously reflect on what isn't working about it, rather than just giving it up entirely or letting it fall to the wayside. I made the goal once of running 4 times a week, and I just could not get myself to do it. First of all, I didn't follow my own advice to start small. I told myself that I needed to run 3 to 5 miles 4 times a week each time, or it didn't count. I should have started smaller and worked up to that habit if that was actually what I wanted. At the time, I wasn't even a regular exerciser. Since then, I've spent time reflecting and realized that running 4 times per week isn't actually appealing to me. But my ultimate goal was that I wanted to be a person who purposefully moves throughout the week. So instead of making myself run 4 times per week, I look for other methods of moving that I enjoy. Some days it's biking, some days it's walking, some days it's running, or a class at the gym. My emphasis is on creating the lifelong habit of exercising and enjoying it regularly. Having a clearly defined why from the beginning will allow you to be flexible in the habits that ultimately are formed, which will make it easier to stick to them. So in conclusion, there are a lot of different things to think about when forming new habits and lots of different strategies to try. Thinking on all that I've shared today and everything in my resource list, it's a toolkit. If you've got a well-stocked toolkit, you've probably got a tool for just about any job. You won't use every tool for every job, and sometimes the one that works best will surprise you. So try them out, keep what works, and discard what doesn't work. So many healthy habits are interconnected. When you improve one area of your life, you will likely notice positive changes in other areas as well. My morning walk around the block has also given me some wonderful mindfulness benefits. Taking a lap around the office building has cut down on my daily snacking, and the extra movement in my day is good for weight control. I'm not saying that any of these steps make forming new habits easy. It's still a lot of work to make any long-lasting change in your life. But if you're clear on why you want to make the change, and you've given some thought and experimentation to see what works best for you, forming healthier habits is in your control. You get to decide which habits you want to work on, and you get to control the steps that you take to get there. In the beginning, you do have to make the choice to start, but eventually that choice will become more automatic, and you'll find yourself enjoying the benefits of your healthier lifestyle. And this last slide is just a couple of the resources that I used to make the presentation. Highly recommend all of these books and articles. Better Than Before by Gretchen Rubin, Start With Why by Simon Sinek. That one is actually an organizational communication and leadership book, but it's a great book to explore whys. The 4-Day Win by Martha Beck has a focus on nutritional habits. The New York Times has a great article about how to build healthy habits. Small Habits Revolution goes into a lot of these same points. And then we've done a lot of Informs issues on various healthy lifestyle choices and how to make them, how to get started. Particularly, I know we've had some questions about specific exercise routines. Dr. Jeffrey Hebert is our physical therapist who goes into detail about how little or how much exercise you need as a person with MS. We have an issue of Informs on sleep, which also includes nutritional information, mindfulness, and then kind of an article that sums all of this up is the Maximizing Lifelong Brain Health issue. Those can all be found on mscenter.org. Thank you.